support our coverage with a free account on Privacy, the service that keeps you protected when shopping online. Get $5 to try it now by using promo code QZZ2J.
Well, we have our next guest here. Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Go ahead and introduce yourself for me.
I'm Andy from Palm Beach Bots. We're out of Palm Beach, Florida, and we do combat robotics parts and events, kind of like BattleBots that regular people fight.
Okay, very cool. So tell me about that.
So BattleBots on TV, I'm sure most people have seen it or know what it is. They look like
down
little,
the street?
Yeah, Destructathon. They look on TV. They look like little RC cars.
Mm-hmm.
They're 250 pounds.
Yes.
And the to build an enclosure big enough to fight something that dangerous, it's
wicked.
It's not effective for a weekend event.
Yeah.
So what most people fight is a 1 pound and 3 pound robots. Mm-hmm. They're called ant weight and beetle weight, and that's the names. Well, you've been to fights, so you know. And there's a few kits that people start with, and I used to do events and displays for like big fairs or Comic-Cons just to promote that fighting robots exist.
Okay.
And people kept bugging me to like buy robot kits from me, and I was like, I don't sell robot kits. And then so I talked to like one of the manufacturers, and they said you should start selling them. And I was like, okay. So I just did it for fun, and I still do it kind of for fun, just to make the hobby more accessible. Okay. But it's grown so much now that I have kits I've designed that schools use for educational programs. There's a class called Plastic Ant, which you're probably familiar with, where the robots are all 3D printed. And so I found that I had schools running full combat robot programs in school, but the teachers aren't robot people.
Right.
And they'd run into obstacles where they don't know how to build this. And I was like, well, I don't want to lose the robot unit because it makes learning fun for kids. It really engages them.
Yeah.
So I designed a series of kits of different styles for plastic ants, and I don't care if they have a robot unit because they can use the plastic ant kit to tie where they're teaching the kids CAD and they're teaching them 3D printing. They can use it at the same time, and it's just the glue that ties those two lessons together.
Yeah.
And the kids will figure out how to do stuff anyways.
Sure.
So when the schools buy them, I give them the CAD files, and I also give them the all the STL files.
Okay.
So they can print all the spares they want, and they can go make modifications cool. and use it to learn with. And that's been pretty successful in getting all the schools an easier path to entry into building fighting robots.
That's cool. It's one of the things that we've seen with First and Vex as well is the teachers that take on that responsibility are not necessarily robotics
They
people.
may have a chemistry background, so they're a STEM teacher, but they don't know how to solder.
Not even necessarily that. I think one of the schools in Tampa, it's run by an English teacher.
They just like stuff.
Because that was who would take it on.
Yeah.
And somebody needed to. They took it on. They learn on the fly.
Yeah. And some of them do learn, some of them don't. I have one teacher that would always send me a message, I can't figure this out. And he'd be like in the middle of class. And I'm like with like a bunch of 12-year-olds trying to learn how to build it. I'm like, you're going to lose their, so I'm doing a class next week in Orlando for the Orlando Library System to teach the teachers because they're doing a combat program. And I told them as a courtesy I would come teach a class because they're going to have a much better experience if they know what they're doing before they start.
Right, absolutely.
I also built them an arena, a small one. I'm working on a toolless arena.
Okay.
So I'll just give the plans out. I'm not going to sell it. It's just to make it easier for the schools to build one. So I have a little test box I made that you can build in 15 minutes with no tools.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all like quick release connectors.
That's
nice. So you can pack it flat and they can ship it, or they can just store it really easy and put it together and test stuff.
That's very different than ours.
Oh, I know. Well, my big box comes in a trailer. That one is a little harder to build.
Yeah.
We built it at Orlando in 90 minutes flat.
Okay.
Because believe it or not, my 8x8 arena assembles with no tools.
Okay.
It's built out of pallet racking. And it's modified. So you just click it together like you're building shelves, and there's slots, all the glass stays in, and when you put it all together, it's all there.
Nice.
I thought it was put together on hopes and dreams, like when I first got it.
Yeah, right?
But then I built it and used it. I'm like, oh, my God, this is amazing.
It works.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Success.
Yeah. I've seen yours, though. It has wheels, though, yours, and that's pretty handy.
We absolutely added those on.
Yeah, the wheels are nice.
When Ryder delivered it, it did not have wheels on it.
Okay.
It was the first thing we did was put giant casters on it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Because there's no other way of dealing with that. We had to cut a hole We had to cut our door open
Oh,
bigger
bigger?
at Amrock because it was,
Oh,
honest to God, it was about an inch too small to get it out.
that's. Remember I told Andrea and Mike from Witch Doctor. I used to have a Witch Doctor all the time.
Yeah.
That I would take to displays, and it's this much too wide for a standard doorway. And I said, I'm not a BattleBots team or anything, but if I could give you some advice, I would make it about 2 inches thin, just so we can display it easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how long have you been involved in this?
I started in fighting robots 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
I just saw BattleBots on TV and thought it was cool. And then they didn't have the third season when ABC dropped them. And then I found their Facebook page, like as the saying goes, and they announced the taping in Long Beach.
Okay.
And it was $20 for a ticket. I was like, yeah, but you got to fly to Long Beach from Florida.
Sure.
So I did it.
Yeah, of course
I came and I went and I'm like, this is so cool. This is super fun. And then I went nuts trying to find events.
Yeah.
Like I am my own customer basically. And so then I found an event in Martin County. It was a local event. I didn't know what to expect. I brought my son, who was 6 at the time.
Okay.
And we walked in. I'm like, it was axe backwards. Kurt was throwing it. And so I was like, that's one of the robots from the TV show right there. And then I was like, and Andrea and Mike were there fighting their insect robots. And I was like, that's the girl from the Witch Doctor one on TV. And she's fighting a 9-year-old. What is this place?
Where am I?
Yeah, I'm like, how did this happen? So I was like taking notes and like taking pictures of everything. And I went back and I figured out how to buy a Viper kit, which is the one everybody starts with. And then I ordered it, and they were out of stock, and they didn't ship it for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then they still hadn't shipped it. And then Andrea had posted that they were having like you can come see the Witch Doctor in person. At this point, I didn't know everybody, so this was like a big deal. And so we drove down to Miami.
Yeah.
And it turned out she had kits for sale.
Oh.
So I bought a kit from her on the spot. And canceled the other order. And then we went home and built it. And then I used to drive from West Palm to Miami every weekend with my son to practice at their makerspace. And that was annoying. To drive 3 hours total to practice for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So then I built my own arena.
Sure.
And then like a little 4x4, not the bigger one. And then I had gone to Maker Faire Orlando, which is like the Super Bowl of robots in Florida. And I called the Maker Faire in Palm Beach, and I was like, hey, I see you don't have robot fighting. Would you like to borrow my arena? And that turned into they put me on the committee to plan the whole event, which I didn't. That's what happened, I guess. So then I did my first robot fight.
That's what always happens.
Yeah. And then I had 3 BattleBots there and displays, and I had a bunch of people fighting in the arena. Then I just became the guy that planned all the robot fights.
Yeah.
And then the parts came around the same time as that. So it's all just been something I did to build the hobby and make it easier.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to what happened to our group.
Yeah.
We did it at the state fair, and the next thing we know, they've given us the entire red room to do STEM programming.
Yeah.
We did 1 day worth of thing, and the next thing we know, we were doing the red room.
Well, I did the Science Center event, the first one, and then 2020 happened. And then at the end of 2020, they were open, but they had no budget.
Yeah.
And they said, can you do a robot display? I said, oh, sure. So I brought my arena. I put some insect robots in there. I borrowed a Witch Doctor and put it on display. And then someone from the fair, South Florida Fair, the West Palm, saw that. Then they called me to do a robot fight at that fair. And then at the end of that I did a full 3-week exhibit, and we did a robot fight at the end of the fair. And then at the end of that fair, the CEO called me into her office to ask me to bring the big box and fight 250-pounders the next year. So in the January 2022 fair, the theme was robots.
Wow.
And I brought the big box from Maker Faire Orlando, and we built 30-pound show bots that we did a show. We did 56 shows in 17 days. And the final weekend, we fought 250-pounders from BattleBots live at the fair.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
That's crazy.
It's 21 straight days of being there, but it was pretty awesome.
We were exhausted after 10.
Yeah, 10's a long
We're like, that's
run.
enough.
I told them I can't do 17 again.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
can't
crazy.
do it. But it was fun to do it. I'm glad I did it. But to do it again would require like a full-time team of doing it.
For sure.
Yeah, it was a ragtag bunch of robot guys the first time.
It happens.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming up and talking. It's interestingly outside of our normal guest.
Yeah.
But I love it.
I would have brought a robot if I knew, but
that's okay.
The planes don't like the robots.
They
much.
don't like the robots that much.
Yeah. What is this? It's a killing machine.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Just let's keep going.
Push it through. Well, thank you.
If people want to find out more about what you're up to, how can they do that?
It's www.palmbeachbots.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram as Palm Beach Bots as well.
Very cool. Well, thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
Have a good one. The Tech Podcast Network CES 2024 coverage is executive produced by Michelle Mendez. Technical directors are Kurt Corliss and Adam Barker. Associate producers are Nancy Ertz, Clinton Millsap, Sergio Velasquez, and Terry Willingham. Voiceover by Aaron Hurst. Our hosts are Marlo Anderson, Don Bain, Todd Cochran, Scott Ertz, and Christopher Jordan. Studio and equipment are provided by PLUGHITZ Productions. This has been a Tech Podcast Network broadcast, copyright 2024.